So, the big question is this: how are ambitious people like us, who don't have a lot of resources, did not go to Ivy League colleges, were not born into wealth, how do we become resourceful enough? Use our creativity, our dedication, and a little bit of crazy to bootstrap our way to realizing our dreams. Whether it is launching a new company, launching a new app, or making it to the top of the corporate ladder. That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. All right, great. Let's get started. So, hi everyone, and welcome to this show, Bootstrapping Your Dreams. This interview is about helping entrepreneurs and professionals with getting started with influencer marketing and other related topics like getting the right exposure for your business or your professional profile. The title for today's episode is Influencer Marketing: What You Need to Know Right Now to Bootstrap Your Dreams Quickly. My name is Manoj Agarwal, and today I'm talking with influencer marketing expert Susanna G about how every entrepreneur or professional can get started on the right track with influencer marketing and obtain the best results. So welcome, Susanna. Susanna G is a well-known expert.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Susanna Yi is a well-known expert on the subject of influencer marketing and has graciously consented to this interview. She'll share her ideas on how beginner entrepreneurs and professionals can get started with influencer marketing. So, Susanna, thank you again for joining us on this live interview. Let's jump right in. So my first set of questions is going to be about your background and experience in the field of influencer marketing so that we can understand who you are, where you're coming from, and how you can relate to where entrepreneurs and professionals in our audience are right now. And then we'll jump into some beginner steps to success that every entrepreneur or professional needs to understand about how to get going in the right direction. Make sense? All right, great. So could you tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of your background, your education and experience in the field of marketing?
Sure. So I started in the startup space in business development in about 2000. And I really just was working in business development and sales and marketing for many years, but mostly for startup companies. So I really got a feel for the startup space and I really liked it. And I always liked technology and the internet and, started with things such as just eBay. I became a power seller on eBay selling things that I liked. So I really enjoyed the internet that much, so for fun, things like eBay. And then I started my own personal blog where when blogs were brand new, I started a personal blog that became pretty well known in the fashion blogging space. And I was invited by brands like Condé Nast and other companies to go to New York and see a launch. So I saw a Dior lipstick launch in New York City at the Condé Nast building one year. I was invited, one of 20 bloggers, and some other types of events like that where I was invited to New York. I was invited to an event with one other brand to do a shoot and to pick out clothes that I liked to show to my audience and my blog. So I got a feel for that, and then I started ending up working on the other side of the business in social media marketing, and I was working for myself as a consultant, and then I started a consulting firm in social media marketing, and then started working with influencers because I saw the need for brands to work with influencers, and I already experienced it on my own on the other side. So I started working with brands, and one of my brands that I worked with through my consulting firm was Guess Jeans, and it actually went viral in 2012 and was written up in Mashable. So that's kind of how the influencer business started for me.
That's awesome. That's great. By the way, what did you sell? Interesting story. I used to sell on eBay as well. I used to sell sporting goods. This was back in 2004, 2005. So what did you sell?
I sold mostly designer vintage items and designer bags and shoes and jackets and things like that.
Very cool. All right. Okay, so what kind of experience you've had in this field that are relevant to the audience who are just getting started with influencer marketing? They may not know what it is all about or how to go about, getting started with it.
So the way I look at influencer marketing is it's not new, but people are calling it something new. And the reason why is because the people that are entering the space to become influencers are brand new to the space. But the business is not new. The business was, celebrity endorsements or celebrities really doing this kind of work a long time ago. And then bloggers who were well known became started working with brands, and they were the early bloggers or early day influencers. The reason why these people are called influencers nowadays is because they don't necessarily have blogs. A lot of them may not even understand how to blog, and according to them, they just have to post on social media. So that's why they're called influencers. Sure. But the business is really not new because we've been doing endorsement deals forever, and the same with influencers. So today, what it is anybody that has a following on social media is considered an influencer, and there are many categories from a smaller following to a larger following. For anybody who wants to start out and start working with influencers, the best thing to do is to find somebody who has an engaged, smaller following and see if they can start working with them in a partnership way where they can grow with them as a brand and as an influencer. So if a brand is smaller and an influencer has a smaller audience, maybe they can work out a deal where they give them some free product and or maybe just a little bit of money to get started, and see if they could start working with them in that type of capacity, and have the influencer promote the brand, talk about the brand, do as much content as possible for the brand, either through video or posting on the feed, stories, IGTV, that kind of thing, and just spread the message out wherever they're popular on social media. So that's what I would say for getting started. Really, if you want to, as a brand, start working with the smaller influencers, the larger influencers are going to want to get paid.
I see. So one of the first things that even I struggle with sometimes when I think about influencer marketing is, how do you find these influencers first, and then once you find them, like, how do you engage them? Because since they are an influencer, they already must be getting approached by other brands, and so how do you approach them and put some value proposition in front of them, especially as I said, if we are starting off, we don't want to spend too much money. How do we go about that?
So as a company that is starting out, the best thing to do is to find an influencer that has the same target audience as your product or brand. So that influencer, usually they get started because they just have a passion for something. So if they're interested in sneakers, let's just use sneakers. They're interested in sneakers, like those sneakers that are really hard to find. They started out probably just posting about it because that's what they liked. And then they gained a following with like-minded people. And now they have a target audience. And as they grew, other brands were interested in working with them because now they have an audience that's listening to them. So that is a perfect example of how you would reach out. So if you have a sneaker brand and you're a smaller company, you're just starting out, approach these people who have a smaller following, not the giant, obviously, sneaker influencers, but the smaller ones, and say, I see that you're really interested in sneakers, and let them know what you like about them and why. Because and then explain to them why you think that it would be great for you to work with them, and see what they're willing to do. A lot of times influencers are very passionate, and if you have something interesting, they might just post it because they're interested. The best thing to do, though, because most of these people, if they grow or they're thinking about growing or they're really working on their content daily, they do want to get incentivized to do something. So find out what they want. Let them know that you're willing to, let them know what you're willing to do. So either you're willing to share your audience with them by letting them, be a guest influencer one day, or if they want to grow their audience, maybe run a giveaway with them, or if they want free sneakers, then give them free sneakers. Find out what they're looking for, and hopefully you can reach a compromise in some way. Of course, if they're a bigger brand, or an influencer, they'll just want to get paid. But a lot of times these people have a passion, and that's why they do what they do. So they don't always need to be paid. So there's one way to work it out. So you could run a giveaway. You could either give them free product, or maybe you can give them some free exposure on your end.
Okay, that's great. Now, so you mentioned sneakers, and obviously, influencer marketing is closely associated with consumer products like sneakers, as you mentioned. So, do you think that this type of marketing can work for B2B type of businesses or service-oriented businesses as well?
I think so. I've seen a lot of it recently. There was one that was a browser,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, in my mind, even though it's not a B to B, B to C business, it's still kind of B to C because the decision makers are consumers and they're still on those platforms.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to target it correctly
Yes.
because they're still on those platforms. But find out where they exist. So if your product is really a B2B product, go on I would still, like, Facebook has 2.3 billion people, right? So you should still go on there because most likely the executive who's making the decision on that kind of a SaaS product or whatever it is, they probably go on Facebook too. But then of course go on LinkedIn. Make sure you're where they are. Wherever your target is, make sure they are, and make sure your influencer that you're approaching has influence in that area.
Okay, great. So now, in that sort of quest, are there any tools or websites or apps that people can use to take their first step?
I think the main thing is it depends on your budget, right? So for bootstrapping, my suggestion is just to search hashtags.
Okay.
Find hashtags that resonate with your target consumer. Like, what are they searching for? And go in there and search up the hashtags. And it works well in Instagram if you search up the hashtags for whatever you're looking for your target group. It also works in LinkedIn. It works in Facebook, in Twitter. They all work. So look up the hashtags and their keywords of your target consumer and see who's posting about it. And most likely you'll gather a group of influencers. There are search tools that are out there, and some of them start at like $49 a month. And the bigger enterprise ones go up to about $2,000 a month, and they do a little more for you. They help you organize everything from contracts to all the back and forth that you have with influencers. There was a study that was done recently about influencer marketing for 2019, and they did studies going back from 2016 to 2018. And the survey did say they surveyed about 800 marketers that one of the most time consuming things with working with influencers is finding them and getting them to agree to do the campaign. About 36% of them said that was one of the most time consuming things. The other was negotiating the contracts, the legal.
Yeah. So when you mentioned, like, there are some tools which sort of maybe facilitate this process or help them move faster, like do you have any recommended tools that you may want to name, or like the audience should go just search it out on Google and find the one they like?
I mean, there are a lot. There's one called Thomason, which is for bootstrapping brands, for people who really want to just give away free product. If you're a consumer brand and you don't have a lot of money, you just want to give away free product, go to Thomason and list your product. And I think that tool, I don't know, is probably $39 or $49 or $79 a month. I think it was $79 actually last time I looked. Okay. My only issue with these types of platforms in general is that anybody who has a pretty decent, highly engaged following probably isn't on these types of platforms because they're already being approached by brands. So they don't need to go on that type of platform, if you know what I'm saying. So what I've noticed is even the higher enterprise platforms, like the $1,800 or $2,000 a month ones, some of the more well-known ones that I've worked with brand partnerships, they're just not on there. They don't need to be.
Yeah. That's a very good point, actually.
Yeah. But if you're just starting out and you don't know what to do and you want it to be easy and you don't have time and you run your own business and you're doing everything, like a Thomason or Clout, I think is $49. Okay. Those two are interesting. Clout is more about just doing a real partnership and working with an influencer. Thomason is more about just giving them free product. Now, just with a grain of salt, because I get some of them are great on there, but some of them you're probably better off just searching on a hashtag.
Okay, got it, got it. Now, uh, the other question I have to ask is like, what if they get stuck in this first step? So you did mention, search for hashtag, go to these platforms, but is there any other professional help? Like, let's say they just cannot seem to find the right influencer. They are in a atypical industry or what have you. Can they approach you? Can they find some other people who are willing to help in this first step of finding and recruiting the influencers?
Sure. I mean, like people like me, that's what we do. We help companies and brands go from A to Z. So we help you find the influencer, we put them in front of you, we give you choices, we let you know what the fees are, we help you with the budget, we help you with the strategy, from creating a strategy for what types of influencers you should put together in a campaign, to what the campaign should be and what your goals are, to helping you figure out the contract terms for this particular influencer, and helping you vet them, really looking at them and making sure that they're for real.
Okay.
Because there are people who have fake followers out there, and you can figure it out, but the listening tools aren't as sophisticated as you think, because some of the people who are fake followers, they're not really fake people, they're real people
Okay.
that are engaging, and they're not bots anymore, but they're just people who are running 30-40 sites at a time.
Oh, okay. All right.
So they're
Uh,
real people.
I see. I see. All right. So yeah, there's a lot to learn about this industry actually. So okay, now on to the next step. So let's say they found the influencer. They have entered into a contract. What can they do to make the best out of this engagement? So that will be the next step, right? Like make sure that they are ready for the influencer and they are ready for taking advantage of this opportunity that they are entering into, because if they still don't know how to take the next step, it may just fall apart.
Yeah, I mean, before you go look for an influencer, make sure you could identify them first, but don't reach out to them yet until you're ready to go. So
Okay.
let's just say you've done your search and you were like, you're all excited and you said, okay, I want to work with these 20 influencers, right? Understand that this process to do a campaign from beginning to end is about 8 to 12 weeks. And I'm saying this because between negotiating with every one of these influencers and figuring out what you want them to do for you, plus if they want to get paid, or if you're giving them free product, and then getting them to post for you, and then making sure that they post the correct stuff, and then for you to like approve it, and then if there's a contract involved, going back and forth with negotiating the contract, that's already like 8 weeks of time with 20 influencers involved. And then making sure that everything they've done for you is trackable, so that you show results after this is all said and done. And what are your goals for tracking these results? Like, do you want this to be a branding campaign? Do you want this to be a sales campaign? Do you want this to be a click-through campaign? Like, what is your goal? And then what is your budget? And these are all things that I think you really need to know from the beginning. So really understand the time involved, who's going to do the work in your organization, and how much money do you have to spend? Because before you even reach out to these people, you want to make sure that you have decided all these things.
Sure, sure. And what about the mechanics? So as you said, like they are going to be posting things. So who prepares the content and who prepares like the graphics and things like that? So does the entrepreneur who's looking to grow their company, do they need to think about some of these overheads as well, like hiring a copywriter, hiring a graphics designer, and those type of things?
So the beauty of hiring an influencer to work with you is that they are probably the least expensive way to create content, because number one, they are doing the content for you. Number two, they've agreed to allow you to repurpose their content. And number three, they have an engaged audience already. So it's different from you hiring a graphic designer and a copywriter to create an ad for you, and then for you to then pump it out on Google AdWords, or for you to put it on your social and then hope that your audience is taking interest, right?
Yeah.
So like these people are going to basically engage their audience and say, look, I like this brand and this is why. And then you could take this and validate your brand by putting it in front of your own audience and saying, this influencer loves our brand. And then most likely some of your target audience can relate to these people. And if they haven't already seen it on this influencer site, if they're not following them, but maybe they now see on your site that you're saying this influencer is following us and this is what they're doing, and they're like, oh my God, this person's like me, or I like this person, or I relate to this person. Like, that is what people are talking about in terms of ROI. The cost of creating your own graphics and your own copy and then trying to like get lift out of that is more expensive at the end of the day than paying an influencer to basically create copy for you, get their audience engaged, and all the other stuff that's involved. And that's, so actually, if you work with the right influencers that work for your brand, the payback's actually pretty big, but you have to make sure you do all the parts that are involved.
Awesome, that's great. And so, so if they create the content, so is you mentioned, there is some sort of approval process as well, or is it done before before the contract is signed, and they just go on their own and start posting the content?
Well, I think what we have to remember first and foremost is the reason why you engage with these influencers because you like their style, right? So.
Yeah.
Some of the brands always forget this, and then they always put parameters around it, and then they basically put these people in a box, and then by the time they're done with their content, it doesn't look like anything they would ever have written, and then their audience rejects it because it looks nothing like what they normally do, right? So make sure that when you as a brand are going to do a campaign like this, that you allow these influencers to be who they are, because that's why you hired them to begin with, right? But of course, as a brand, you want to make sure they follow certain parameters so you hit your goals. So you should give them a loose parameter of things that you would like them to achieve in their blog post, but you don't tell them how to write it. But if there's certain things, like if you're a company that has like a food product or a product that is a science-backed product or a legal-backed product, something that has to do with certain rules that the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, is going to be watching on this company, then you make sure that the influencer understands that there are certain parameters that they can't go beyond. So for example, if your product is a great product for heart health, but it doesn't cure cancer, make sure that they know that they can't say that. So those are the only parameters. And then if there's a certain way that things have to be said because something has clinically proven, then make sure they understand why it has to be said a certain way so nobody wastes their time.
Sure. So just out of curiosity, like so we talked about, people who have following, like how many followers, typically you need to have in order to be considered an influencer?
I mean, there are influencers now that are called nano influencers, and they literally have like 500 to 4,000 followers. Those are nano influencers. Being an influencer doesn't mean you have to have a lot of followers, but those followers need to be really engaged with you. So if you're a nano influencer, you have 4,000 followers, and say your engagement rate is 5% or 8%, that's huge. That's better than having 1 million followers and having a 0.9% engagement rate, right? So think about it that way. So Kim Kardashian, everybody's following her, but not everybody's checking in with her every day. They're just following her, right? And who's following her? Everyone, because everyone wants to know what she's doing or what's being done or what the trend is. But if somebody has like 4,000 followers and they're talking about, let me give you an example. They're talking about paleo snacks, right? Like paleo snacks for kids, like very niche, right? But every mom that's following them is a paleo person, and they want to make sure their kids eat paleo too. Well, guess what? If that audience is engaged 10% of the time, all the time, that's a great audience. And if you're selling paleo snacks for kids, that's gold.
Awesome. And so how do you measure engagement levels?
You're really looking at, well, okay, first of all, what's great is a lot of these social media networks have insights already. So you want to make sure that when you do something with these influencers, if they're getting paid, I don't know what you can get if they're not getting paid, right? But if they're getting paid, you want, or if you're giving them a high enough price point product for free, they should agree to let you see their insights. So, they should allow you to see, their Instagram insights or their Facebook insights, and you'll see right away who their demographic is and and how engaged they are.
Awesome. Okay. All right. And so now, let's say the first step is finding the influencer, engaging, recruiting them, setting up the contract. The next step is, go through the engagement, they post, and then what is the next step after post the campaign? Like, how do you measure ROI? How do you now scale it up? So let's say, you did have a positive ROI. Now you need to scale it up. You need to go to, from nano influencers to micro influencers to the bigger ones. So what does that process look like?
So is this campaign over? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
You finished this campaign? Okay.
Yeah.
So you finished this campaign, you achieved, let's just say the weighted ROI for you for this time was getting click-throughs to your site. So you achieved whatever your benchmark is for that situation, and you want to run another campaign. Okay. So look at what you've done in this campaign and make a pros and cons list. This is what I call post work, right? Post-mortem. Decide what was successful about it, figure out how much money you spent, and decide if you want to do this again. And if you want to do this again, how much more money can you spend on this? Or how much less money you want to spend on this? And then figure out who your new targets are. Now, if you're going to micro influencers, they're going to cost money. Usually they don't work for free because this is what they do. So once they get up to like a 20, 30 to like 100,000 followers, and let's just say their engagement rate is like 4%, these people are getting paid all day long to do this. And so you have to decide on what your budget is for each of these people, and then you start reaching out to them and finding out where that is, and then figuring out where you get more bang for your buck. So you can start measuring it, right? So like if you look at your nano follower and this person had a high engagement rate, so that means that when you did your campaign with them, maybe a lot of their followers did a click through, and you achieved your goal that way, or a lot of them signed up for your email campaign. Figure out how much more you think you can get with a micro influencer for paying them some money, and make sure it's going to work against what you already got for free, or for a free product. So think about it that way.
Yeah. So I think I get the point. What I was really referring to is like, what are the tools they need? So as an entrepreneur, like somebody who's starting off, they may not really understand what are the tools they need and what setup they need to actually measure the ROI, because they could be getting clicks from Google, they could be getting clicks from other ads they are running. So how can they isolate the numbers and attribute it to a particular influencer and say, okay, I paid X amount of dollars to this influencer and I got, this much output out of it, right? So because that is very important for them to make future decisions, right?
Okay, so the best thing to do is, if you can do it on your site, is create codes for these people. So if you're sending them just your site for clicks or emails, then give them like a bit.ly link. That's free.
Okay.
The thing about bit.ly link is it's not as accurate as you want it to be. Maybe you can use a UTM link also. A UTM link is really great. You can create those, and then those are really trackable, and you can see that in your Google Analytics. You got to make sure they use those though, and you can't really always use it. You can use it like in the LinkedIn profile, but you can't use it in a swipe up as well. So you can make it into bit.ly link, but bit.ly links aren't super accurate. A lot of times there are extra tracking situations or something, so I would say you want to use the UTM link to track that information. And I think that's most effective. And then just make sure you're clear with the influencer where you need to put them, and make sure they're using them correctly. And then also a code is really good if you're doing something else. Like if you're driving people to go to a sale to buy something, then give them their own code. Okay. If you can work it out on your site.
Cool. All right. And are there any other beginner level steps at this point that people need to be aware of? Anything else that you may want to advise them to do or be mindful of?
I think the thing about influencer marketing that brands, even large brands, are not very aware of even now is that it's very time consuming. And I mean this because if you're managing 20 people for a campaign that's going to be 2 months or 3 months long, literally it'll take you 8 weeks to just onboard them and get everybody all set up, and then to make sure that everybody is going to turn in their content in the time period that you want. and then making sure the content is correct, and making sure that you're tracking it, and then making sure that during the time the campaign's happening, that you're going to get the results that you're going to get. Legal, everything is a 12-week process, and it is literally, I would say, a 25 to 30 hour a week job for one person.
Wow.
So that's what people have to understand. And I don't think brands understand this. And a lot of times the head of the company or the decision maker is usually somebody who doesn't even use the internet sometimes, or they might not even have social media, or they don't even know who an influencer is. They don't understand why it's happening. So, and the other thing people have to be mindful of is an influencer campaign can't be a one and done. You're building trust with their audience. You're building trust with your audience, their audience, right? It's almost like if you drive by a billboard 20 times, I can tell you that I've driven by a billboard 20 times before I decide to watch that show, right? So think about how many times you see something before you buy a new product, or like a new milk that came out, or a new yogurt that came out, right? I've seen it like 20 times at the supermarket, but okay, maybe I'll try it this time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's what you have to think about. And so if you, it's better if you invest in these types of relationships for a longer period of time instead of a shorter period of time. So my preference for brands is to do, a longer, if you want to try free product and then you start paying them, and then you pay them a little more to do a little more, do something different, or just show up at events for you, whatever it is, a long-term partnership is better than a short-term partnership for everyone.
Got it. Yeah, that's true for sure. All right, great. So is there anything else that I haven't asked you about getting started with influencer marketing that you may want to share?
No matter what, it's going to cost you money. So it's going to cost you money to hire a part-timer to do that work. It's going to cost you money to give away free product. It's going to cost you money to hire an influencer. So you're bootstrapping it. So the cheapest way to do it is to give away free product, but you're still going to need like a human to do some of that work.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay. Thank you, Susanna, for such a great interview. I think I'm sure all the entrepreneurs and professionals in our audience have a much clearer understanding of how they can get started with the influencer marketing. You have laid it out everything very clearly. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise and experience. So before I let you go, can you tell us a little bit about your marketing services that you provide and your company?
So my company basically helps people create marketing campaigns, influencer marketing campaigns from A to Z. We really want to help people see ROI in their campaigns. So ideally, we want to make sure that a brand, if they work with us, wants to work long-term with influencers and create campaigns that people will see over and over again when they've seen this content, and really long tail content. So meaning like a year from now, they might be clicking on a link at an influencer site and it might come back to you and it was a campaign that we did together. That is something that we usually do. And then also I have an influencer marketing roadmap course. That's an online course that entrepreneurs can buy for themselves to learn how to do this from A to Z, with worksheets and videos and templates that I use with my clients to manage the projects between the influencers and the internal brand, and also the marketing firm and the brand, and also their legal teams or legal documents. There's templates for that. There's templates for emails and how to reach out to them and what to say to them and how to negotiate with them. There's a template on how to build UTM links. There's information on the types of platforms out there and what each of them does. So there's a list of them. So just A to Z, and you can actually start the campaign from week 1 of this course, and by week 8, be ready to launch. So that's the course I offer. And what I usually do with clients is they can have somebody learn this process and doing it side by side. So the next campaign, they could do it on their own. And then and then we put them into a group where they can ask questions, and I usually go on and answer questions.
That's awesome. That's great. And so where can they go and find more information about it? Do you have a website address that you can share?
Sure. It's digitaleverything.consulting.
Awesome. That's great. Okay, great, Susanna. Thank you so much for your time. I'm sure our audience will love the knowledge that you have shared today. Hope to see you again.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
So again, I'm Manoj Agarwal, and thanks a lot for joining us on the Bootstrapping Your Dreams show. I'm guessing there are a lot of type A ambitious personalities in the audience today. And you guys are always busy thinking about your next big move, your next plan to conquer the world. I know, because I'm also constantly trapped inside my own head. To avoid stress and live a healthy and happy life, I highly recommend Ziva Online Meditation course. This course is taught by world-renowned meditation teacher Emily Fletcher. Trust me, meditation has been scientifically proven to reduce stress and heal chronic ailments. So if you want to learn meditation, then you would want to check out this course for sure. I can vouch for it. It helped me tremendously. Go to go.tetranoodle.com/Z1. That's go.tetranoodle.com/Z1. And now, I'd like to invite you to check out my software consulting services and professional training programs at www.tetranoodle.com. We provide world-class consulting services on anything related to technology and software. And we are growing very fast in the areas of education and professional training for software and IT engineers. If you enjoyed this episode, then please do share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes to get automatic episode updates for our Bootstrapping Your Dreams show. And finally, please take a minute to leave us an honest review and rating on iTunes. They really help us out when it comes to the ranking of the show, and I make it a point to read every single one of the reviews we get. Thanks for listening. Stay happy and curious. Have a great day.